Dawn sharpens the headland like a blade. The cliff glows, thin gold on wet stone. A man toes the edge, sneakers damp, heartbeat trying to outrun the tide. Below, green water, dark seam, cold waiting like a held breath. He looks once, twice, and jumps. Salt sears his eyes. The world turns green, then black. He breaks the surface and drags air into his chest like it owes him something. The current snatches his legs. The cliff tilts away. A tall fin rises 15 yards off his shoulder, straight and black against metallic water. He stares, certain this is the last sentence of his life. The fin bends. A black and white head slides closer, slower than panic, faster than hope. Something presses his hip. The water hardens under him. He moves, not by swimming, but by a body larger than his creating a river inside the sea. His shoulder brushes slick skin. The shore leans closer, inch by inch, as if the land itself changed its mind. Keep watching. Because he jumped for the dumbest reason and the smartest animal in sight refused to let him vanish. If you live for true animal mysteries and human choices at the edge, subscribe and tap the bell. What happens after the push is the part nobody was ready for. His name is Leo Hart, 26. Roofer when the weather cooperates, night shift dishwasher when it doesn't. Gray Harbor, Oregon, 1 Main Street, 2 bars, a pier with wood old enough to remember names. Leo is the kid who did not leave even when leaving was the only story his friends practiced. Reckless, yes. Magnetic sometimes. A smile that's a dare and an apology stacked together. He lives over a bait shop that smells like coffee, salt, and old line. His mother is across town with a bad knee and a garden that pushes back against fog. His sister, Hannah, runs the espresso cart by the boat ramp and pretends she is not the nervous system of the town. Leo stops there when he can afford it, which is to say not always. Which is to say most days he borrows a paper cup and pays with a joke. On the first clear Saturday in March, Leo isn't thinking about whales. He's thinking about clicks. Kai, best friend since 5th grade, and now a cameraman for stunts nobody should do twice, says, "One jump, man. 30 feet. You land clean. We cut. We post. Title writes itself." Leo laughs because laughing lets a bad idea pass as charm. "This is how you get rich in a town without rich," he says. "You jump off a rock." "It's a viewpoint," Kai says, pretending to be offended. "Scenic." "You mean illegal." "You mean scenic." They climb the path to needlepoint, where basalt stacks like books and waves fold themselves in private. Gulls stitch white thread through the morning. A crabber noses along the outer bar with the patience of something that's seen every kind of weather. On the ridge, a new sign tells you not to do the thing they came to do. The font tries to be friendly. The fine print does not. Leo looks down. The ocean is never flat. A rip peels out from the cove like a gray tongue. He reads it wrong because he wants to. That's how people end up on plaques. 3, 2, Kai says, phone up. Leo jumps on the 1. Cold bites from ankle to jaw. He hits, sinks, pops. Air knives his throat. The rip grabs his legs and drags for the mouth where the swells thicken and deepen. He swims left because you're supposed to. But the ocean doesn't care about supposed to. It cares about force. He coughs. He swallows. He tastes battery and winter. The cliff grows taller by the second, like a decision he can't undo. Kai's voice is a dot on a ridge that shrinks, then disappears. The phone is still out. Leo could laugh if he weren't too busy choosing between breath and movement. He turns to float and fails. Panic makes the spine forget its job. The rip takes him farther. The shore is a rumor now. The fin arrives without a wake. Tall, straight, black against green metal. Leo freezes so completely he might as well be an idea. He knows orcas. Everyone here does. They move through Gray Harbor like royalty on a tour. Winter for seals, spring for salmon, fall for stories. He's never been this close. Not with nothing between him and a mouth that could end him by accident. The orca rolls. White oval, eye. Not a dog's curiosity. Not a shark's solve. Something else. Something that makes Leo feel seen in a way that burns. Another swell rises beneath the head. Leo's hips lift. He slides sideways. The whale turns, not touching him, just pressing water the way a hand presses the back of a shirt to steer a body through a crowd. He crosses out of the rip's tongue into the shoulder where the water relents. He kicks. His foot glances slick skin, rubbery and cold as coins. For a second he forgets fear and feels only contrast, his fragility against that strength. The whale breathes, and the exhale hangs low. Leo doesn't look up. He looks at the eye. There is no plea in it. No promise. Only a patience that makes his chest ache with shame. Another crafted wall of water, another push. Kelp reaches, he grabs. The stalks slide under his palms, then hold. The swell lifts him once more and his fingers meet basalt. The orca slides past like punctuation. There, then gone. He lies on the rock while the world finds its edges. A skiff noses in slow. Tahlia Ruiz, harbor patrol officer, not mistress. The person who can make anyone feel 10 years younger and 1 inch shorter. She stands low in the bow, scanning the water as if it owes her answers it will never give. "You move and I yell at you later," she says. She throws a line. He pretends he is too weak to catch it, so she has something to forgive him for on a day when he needs forgiving. She hauls him onto the deck. "You're done with cliffs." "Yes." He will tell the truth for the next 30 minutes. After that, his brain will resume. Kai arrives blue with fear and white with relief. He keeps saying "I thought" and not finishing. He keeps looking at the water like it betrayed him personally. He keeps his phone down. He doesn't press record. Not yet. Back at the ramp, Hannah stands with 2 coffees and a face that holds 5 emotions and lets one show. She says Leo's name without a question mark. He answers without humor. Someone posts a photo of him on Tahlia's skiff and comments fill faster than tide. Some are grace. Some are knives. Some are knives pretending to be grace. That night a video goes up anyway. Shaky footage from a tourist. No jump, just a fin sliding behind a man, then the man drifting sideways, then hands on rock. "Dude saved by killer whale?" The title screams. The comments argue and multiply. They don't do that. They totally do that. It was a wave. It was God. It was luck. It was staged. It was karma. It was a hoax. Leo doesn't read them. He sits at his mother's table while the old clock ticks like a patient. She pours tea. Silence settles the way fog does, slowly and completely. "Your father fell from a net when you were 3, she says finally. The water took him and brought him back 5 minutes later when the swell turned in. Sometimes the ocean is not done with you. That's not generosity. That's weather." Leo thinks about the eye. About the moment he wanted to apologize to a creature that has never made a promise to a human in recorded history. Morning, Gray Harbor reloads with experts. Some know things. Dr. Noel Park from the Coastal Lab stands on the pier and makes science sound like a story. "Orcas shape water," she says. "They can push, pull, pin. They learn. Feeding or touching is illegal. Distance is safety. Anyone who goes to needlepoint to try their luck will meet law, not legend." Kai doesn't post the jump. He posts Leo on the rock trying to smile and failing. He posts Tahlia's skiff in the background and a gull landing like punctuation. The video goes 6 figures, then 7. Vans arrive full of people who want to stand exactly where a dumb boy and a smart whale touch the same second of day. We could end here, viral and neat. A free pass with a moral stapled on. But Gray Harbor isn't neat, and the ocean doesn't do credits. 2 days later, a crabber named Cal hears something he doesn't like at Drift Channel. Not a sound, a pattern. His GPS is drawing a shape he trusts, and the shape goes wrong. The tide runs hard out, and a tangle of blue polyrope rides the top like a dead jellyfish. He curses because he knows what poly does to props, and because he can see where it leads. A black lump in chop, flash of white, then nothing. He radios the lab. Tahlia calls Park. Park calls Hannah because Hannah knows the stranding team. Within an hour the bay looks like a floating workbench. Zodiac's, the lab skiff, Cal's crabber, Tahlia's patrol, and 3 orcas hanging back at a line just outside the line where the humans have rules. The entangled one is a juvenile with a listing dorsal. The rope is a cruel geometry. 2 loops around the tail, 1 around the dorsal base. Every kick tightens. Every breath arrives as a debt. Leo watches from the pier for 3 minutes before his bones won't let him stand still. He texts Sky, who texts Park, who replies, "No, he's not trained, yes, they have enough hands, and absolutely no, he should not be on the water." Leo walks to the ramp anyway with the innocent speed of someone hoping the right thing will be decided for him. He meets Nikki, a stranding tech with tide pool forearms, scarred, strong, full of small life. She sees the apology and the stubbornness in his face. "You're the jumper," she says. "I'm the idiot," Leo says. "Same thing," she says, almost smiling. "You listen, hold the pole when I say don't improvise. If I say out, you fly." They launch a softbow Zodiac with a kit that looks like camping for people who camp in hell. Poles with hooks, blades on ropes, buoys that float like patience. The juvenile surfaces and her breath comes ragged and fast. The matriarch, bigger, scar down the saddle, rises 60 yards off and holds like a moon. Cal mutters that she's watching. He is correct. Leo holds the pole like a wrong lance. Nikki leans over the bow like a prayer. Park talks low from the lab skiff. Trailing line, she says. Keep the head clear. If she dives, we let her. An hour for the first wrap. A decade for the second. The whale surges when the loop loosens and the bow slams down. Leo's teeth click like cheap castanets. He keeps his elbows soft. Keeps fear shallow. The last loop peels free and carries a felt memory of skin with it. The juvenile dives. They wait because waiting is 90% of not making things worse. She surfaces clean. Breath like brand new wind. The matriarch slides close and bumps her once in what every human yearns to call thank you and must not. Park says the words anyway, but she says them to Leo. Do not narrate this. Do not make it about us. On the pier, the tourists clap, because clapping is what we do when we don't know what else to do. Leo looks at his hands. Rope burned, ridged. Hannah leans her shoulder into his like a fence that held in a wind. So, she says. No more jumping. No more jumping, he says. It isn't a promise to her. It's to a piece of slick skin he can't stop thinking about. The rescue video goes up with captions that say what needs saying and skip the part about the jumper helping because this isn't a redemption arc and because Nikki edits. The van's slow. The vans that do come bring field notebooks and thermoses instead of dare lists. A week passes. The pod moves south. Park mails samples. Cal repairs nets. Tahlia writes tickets for paddleboarders who think rules are vibes. Hannah sells 27 oat lattes and 1 black coffee to a man who never says thank you but leaves $5 and a seashell. Leo works. He stops staring too long over the rail at needle green water with the hunger of someone who wants to be swallowed. He eats dinner at his mother's and washes dishes like penance. He answers 3 podcasts and turns down 6. He starts to sleep again, and when he dreams, it's of a moving wall of water setting him down where the rocks begin, not of falling forever into a throat that doesn't end. Then a thing happens no one films, and you'll have to decide whether you believe it. Evening fog at ankle height. Tide coming in like someone turning up a dimmer. Leo walks the beach because it is the only place he feels crowded by something kinder than people. At the outfall, driftwood piles like a fort kids forgot to finish. Shapes sit in the mix that aren't wood. Long, narrow, bound. Smell answers first. Diesel. Old bait. Something tinny like batteries stored with pennies. 3 bundles wrapped in painter's plastic and tied with blue rope. The same blue. Not similar. The same. He considers leaving. He considers calling. He calls. Packages, he tells Tahlia. Blue rope. Outfall. Don't touch, she says. Stay put. I'm coming. He does 2 of those 3 things. By the time the skiff's light cuts the fog, the tide is kissing the bundle's feet. Tahlia crouches. No sigh. Sighing is for later. She slits a corner and the ocean breathes out a stink that drags old memories from your throat. Inside, line, weights, knives, a buoy with markings filed down. Kits not for catching fish. Kits for taking what the law says you can tee and what the heart says you shouldn't want. Someone got scared, Tahlia says. Or sloppy. Or they're using the ocean as a trash can again. She calls Sheriff Darius Cole and Park. She takes pictures. She calls a number she doesn't save and says, "We found evidence." And she knows what that means. Months, investigations, suddenly clean decks. People who saw nothing and remember everything. And somewhere inside it, a story the town will have to tell itself out loud, in pieces, with witnesses that don't testify. That night, a truck idles too long outside Leo's building. A door shuts that isn't careful. Footsteps on wet stairs. A knock with a rhythm that isn't a neighbor. Leo's hand goes to the chain and then doesn't. A voice says his name like it's a bet. He opens to an inch. Beanie. Diesel jacket. Not Kai. Not Cal. A man whose face has been seen around the salvage pier. You talk too much, the man says. You look too much. You find things you weren't meant to find. You left them on the beach, Leo says. The tide finds everything. The man smiles without showing teeth. Tides are predictable. People aren't. He leans close enough that Leo can see the weather baked into the skin around his eyes. Keep your nose in the coffee shop. Leave the water to the ones who know it. Leo closes the door. He doesn't throw the chain. He slides down the wood and sits on the floor and listens to the truck leave. He texts Hannah 3 words. I'm with you. He texts Tahlia 1. Truck. He sleeps badly and wakes early and decides that fear is a habit he can starve if he feeds other things instead. 2 storms later, the bar goes bad. Not catastrophe, just the precise wrong wind on the precise wrong tide. A charter calls in a mayday at 4:12 p.m., rammed off the north jetty by a gray center console that took off toward the shelf. Glass fiber against glass fiber has a signature you can pick out of a crowd. Bruised passengers. No injuries. Sheriff Cole heads east out of the mouth as the wind swings north. At 4:29, the lab skiff reports a pod moving hard toward the shelf. 3 animals in formation, the small one in front, the scarred matriarch flanking, a bull in back like a shadow. A V that looks like cavalry if cavalry had been invented by poems. At 4:33, a drone pilot on the bluff uploads footage faster than Gray Harbor can whisper. The gray boat skims 10 yards off the pod. The juvenile, Sable, Park calls her, turns like a swallow. The matriarch cuts the gray boat's bow. The bull surfaces behind its stern so close the prop wash laces his back white for a beat. The gray throttles down into a panic that looks like reason. A man at the helm throws something heavy overboard. The whales don't touch the hull. They circle. They herd. They keep the boat in place without breaking the laws we wrote when we learned how badly we needed them. Cole arrives in a Coast Guard RIB that treats Chop like rumor. They cut between gray and rock. The man at the helm reaches for a throttle he broke with his own hurry. He looks up and sees a badge and a bow. The face he makes is not guilt. It's calculation ruined by time. On the RIB, a deckhand watches the water instead of the man. She sees the shape sink where the splash was. She taps a diver yes shoulder, and the diver rolls backward into the cold like a coin into a slot. He brings up a duffel with tape and weights, and inside a bundle of sweaters around a smaller box. Metal, plastic, wire. The stupid confidence of someone who watches too many shows about people who get away with it. He brings up a phone in a sealed bag. Not the first missing kids. A different name. A different ache. The diver also finds a strap from a red life jacket and the bite of a zip tie cut in a mouth that learned biting to breathe. Gray Harbor has seen storms. It has seen crime. It has not seen whales holding a boat in the frame of a crime scene while law arrives. The town goes quiet in the way that isn't peace so much as recalibration. It learns, for the 3rd time that month, that witness doesn't always have a human face. They don't arrest Leo's stalker that day. This isn't that kind of story. It's the kind where you think you understand the edge, and the next tide redraws it. But the ring around the salvage pier cracks. Names land on paper. The blue rope is a through line. The bundles become exhibits. People who saw nothing begin to see memory. It turns out the ocean is a lousy accomplice. It gives everything back, just not on your schedule. Leo doesn't celebrate. He goes to work. He learns the patience of fastening shingles in wind. He buys the oat milk this time. He carries thermoses to Zodiacs, holds poles when Nikki says hold, lets go when she says let go. He stands at the back of Park's talks and listens. He nods at Cal and pretends not to notice the way Cal nods back like men nod when they share a thing they didn't ask for. In July, the pod returns, riding the perfume of salmon. The tourists have been replaced by watchers who know the rules. 300 yards is a distance you can feel once you learn to look through your own want. Sable breaches so far off she could be a hinge on the sky. The town breathes easier. Then a boy goes missing off the South Rocks and the town stops breathing again. Night in Gray Harbor is not dark. It is layered. Mist. Street glow. Memory. The search starts at low tide and shrinks as the sea returns to take its space. Tahlia runs a grid with the calm of someone who knows calm is the only boat that floats. Park maps currents. Cal works the rake of swells with a crabber's math. Hannah stands on the pier and holds coffee she doesn't drink. Leo waits on the beach with a blanket he will never get dry again. He watches the water for a shape and sees only shapes. Until he doesn't. A fin cuts. Not close. Farther than a person can swim in cold. 2 more. The pod is outside the line, sliding parallel to the search like a sentence waiting for an object. Sable rolls on her side, white patch up, as if reading the sky. The matriarch slows, then slows more. The bull disappears and reappears inside the grid the humans made with lights and hope. Tahlia changes course. Park looks at the map and then doesn't. She looks at the water instead. "We follow," she says. "We don't chase." The pod leads without leading. It moves, then waits. Moves, then waits. Leo runs the beach to keep pace, and the sand folds under his feet like memory. A shape appears where shapes don't last. The flat of a backpack. It rides a small, insistent lift that isn't wave and isn't wind. The boy's head follows. He coughs, see, and breathes air. The lift slides him until hands can finish what water started. He lives. He lives. He lives long enough to join the set of names Gray Harbor doesn't say lightly. Ask the lab to define this night and Park will say physics married to coincidence. Ask Leo and he will say he didn't see the whales save a boy. He saw them change the way the water carried a burden. He saw them shape the frame. The rest happened because people were ready. Both answers can be true. Summer ends like it always does. Fast, then all at once. The cases against the salvagers grow teeth. The pier grows quiet. The vans go home. The town goes back to knowing itself intimately and suspiciously. Leo climbs roofs and keeps 3 points of contact. He stops standing on the rails above green water, hungry to be swallowed. He visits his mother more. He fixes Hannah's gate. He lets himself be bored, and discovers boredom is what peace looks like when you haven't earned serenity yet. He still walks to needlepoint before work sometimes. He doesn't jump. He touches the warning sign out of habit, like knocking wood. He looks at the cliff where a younger version of himself tried to barter thrill for meaning, and a whale refused the deal. He wants to say something grand. He settles for something accurate. Okay. Okay to the rules. Okay to the distance. Okay to being land animal most days. Okay to resisting the urge to turn every miracle into a brand. Okay to the work of lifting a rope that doesn't belong. Making a call when you should. Standing still when you should. Speaking only when your voice actually helps. You want the meaning. You always do. Here's as close as I've got. He jumped because he wanted to be seen by people who count clicks. He was saved by a pressure wave shaped by a creature that counts fish and calves and breaths. That is not romance. That is luck braided with physics, moderated by an intelligence that does not need our compliments. The push didn't cure his restlessness. It didn't make him holy. It made him accountable. If you come to Gray Harbor, stay back. Laws aren't opinions out here. Boats give 300 yards because 300 yards is the difference between education and harassment. Drones stay high. Kayaks stay bored. Hands stay on oars and off wildlife. The ocean is not a theme park and whales aren't extras in your slow motion reel. But do come. Walk the pier at first light when water is old silver and the world is quiet without begging for it. Watch for the black knife point between swells and the white streaks under it. If you are lucky enough to be moved by a thing this ancient, don't translate it into a story where you are the hero. Leave that part unwritten. Sometimes when the tide is right, a swell lifts for no reason Leo can see. It makes the kelp bow. It makes the rocks shine. He feels his body remember the weight against his hip and the way the shore leaned toward him like a decision made by somebody else. He stands and accepts it. That's the haunting part. Not the fin, not the viral, the acceptance. That you owe the ocean respect and the intelligent life that swims through it the kindness of your distance. That you can be stupid and still be let off with a warning once. You won't get it twice. If this story grounded you, if your palms itched and your breath caught and your choices feel heavier, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Like this video so it finds the people who need it more than they need a thrill. And tell me in the comments, was it rescue, instinct, or physics doing what physics does? I read them all. I always do. He jumped into the ocean, and an orca pushed him to shore. Extended cut. That night the town sleeps light. Not because of fear, because a story has started, and no one wants to miss the next noise it makes. Porch lights stay on. Dogs react to nothing. Screens glow on pillows. People who never met Luca say his name in kitchens while the coffee burbles, and a back door ticks as it cools. June texts Ray at 1:13 a.m. You still have the raw? He answers with a photo of a full SD card on his palm. Don't post the jump, she types. Not now, not this way. Ray starts to say it, S already everywhere and can T-finish because he knows the difference between a video about a moment and a video about a person who has to keep living in the town that moment lives in. In the morning, the pier looks like a line drawn by a careful hand. Naomi Kline sets up her easel again, this time with a laminated print. An orca in profile. Arrows and tidy labels. Pressure ridge. She points to the diagram the way a field guide points to a bird in a hedge. They push water, she says. They sculpt it. Think of a moving, invisible ramp. You don't feel the push as a shove. You feel it as a new choice. Luca stands near the back with his hood up, anonymous on purpose and failing at it. He learns that a whale's breath carries information. That the length of a dive tells you what kind of math the animal is doing under there. That the law is both a shield and a test of patience. He nods when she says 300 yards, like a vow belongs after the number. A man interrupts to ask if an orca can be trained to rescue people. The way movies make dogs into saints. Naomi doesn't smile. We have to stop asking animals to fix what we break, she says. And the sentence lands like a small stone on a path everyone is walking without shoes. The harbor patrol writes 6 warnings before noon. Tahlia is careful with her voice and firm with her hands. You can hear the script she learned the hard way. You're too close, you're too fast, turn, idle, drift. If you wouldn't like a boat driving past your bedroom, don't do it to theirs. Some people nod and back away. A few argue as if the ocean is a customer service line. Those are the ones who get the ticket and the quiet, disbelieving look that sends them home thinking they won. Ray shows Luca the comments he filtered out. Don't. Luca shakes his head. I don't need to fight strangers, he says. I need to not be one. He wants to tell Ray that when the whale's eye turned, something old in him flinched and then sat up straight. He doesn't have the right words. He has work. He has a roof to tear off and rebuild between squalls. He has a mother who pretends to nap in the afternoon, and a sister who doesn't. In the afternoons, when school lets out, kids cluster by June's cart for sugar and permission to be loud. They ask if the whale will come back if they whistle. They ask if it knows Luca's name. June tells them a better truth. It knows where the herring goes, she says. It knows where the tide folds. It knows more than we do about the edges of things. A boy with a bright green hoodie nods solemnly and says he is going to learn the tide tables. June gives him a free cookie and an old plastic ruler and says that it's a good start. That evening, Luca walks the ridge path at a speed that looks like indecision and is actually restraint. The cove opens beneath him like a throat catching breath. He stops where the sign says don't and reads it out loud this time. He reads the fine print. He reads the number for reporting entanglements. He saves the number in his phone as do this first. Ray knocks on Luca's door with a pizza and a second cut. I cut the jump, he says, setting the box on the counter like an apology. Kept the aftermath. Kept Tahlia hauling you. Kept your face looking like you met gravity. Luca laughs once. Did I? You met something older, Ray says. He opens the laptop and they watch in silence while the screen shows that black fin glide. The sideways slide, the grip on rock, the shaking hand. There's a frame where you can see the whale, SI if you know where to look. Ray freezes it and doesn't push in. If I zoom, I lie, he says. Let it be small. They eat greasy slices and make the kind of plans you make when you're trying to keep your world from tipping. Safety video. Dr. Kline voiceover. Tahlia on camera with her ticket book and her soft authority. They list shots on a napkin because this town still trusts napkins more than apps. We can make responsible look sick, Ray says, and they both laugh because maybe they can. At 11:04 p.m., someone bangs on the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Luca is up with the chain on before his brain catches up. A man stands there, beard like bracken, jacket that smells like a marina floor, eyes too bright. You think you know whales, he says. You don't know whales. You don't know work. You city kids came back with rules and feelings, and now I can set a line without the lab knocking. He leans closer and his breath is a warning all by itself. You stay off the water. You stop pointing cameras. We're not pointing at you, Luca says, voice steady because rage is a poor tool for bolts that need finesse. We're pointing at lines with numbers filed off. The man steps back like he hit something invisible. For a second, Luca sees a different person behind the eyes. Tired, cornered, hungry in ways that have nothing to do with food. Then a truck idles at the curb, and the moment folds back into threat. The man stomps away. Ray locks the door twice. They don't call the sheriff. They make tea strong enough to stand a spoon and watch night ignore them. 2 mornings later, the radio says the word that makes Gray Harbor move. Entanglement. The voice belongs to Cal, who is built like a piling, and has been depressed since November in the way men get when their hands are idle too long. Juvenile, blue poly, drift channel, she's rolling. The team forms like a tide pool, quickly, exactly, with pieces that look like they were meant to be together. Naomi, Nikki, Tahlia, two volunteers with good legs and better listening. Luca shows up with his hood and his apology and is told yes, then told the rules again until they aren't rules, they're reflex. Up close, the calf is smaller than she felt in the story. Fear and grace both change the scale of things. The line slices white into black where it has burned under tension. The calf's breath is a metronome set too fast. The matriarch paces the outside, surfacing, pausing, listening in frequencies no human ear can hold. The bull stays further out like a wall without a door. Naomi speaks in low, evenly spaced words. We set a trailing line. We keep ahead. We do not block the blowhole. If she dives, we let her. Luca, your only job is yes. Yes, he says, and means it. Nikki gets the first wrap under with a hook and a curse that sounds like a prayer if you grew up around boats. The knife on the rope bites blue. A loop pops free with a recoil that rocks the bow. The calf kicks and the tail thumps the water with a noise that makes Luca's stomach go thin. He keeps his elbows loose like Nikki told him. He keeps his promise in his mouth like a coin. They lose the second wrap when the bow slaps hard and the line smokes against the hull. Naomi says out and both zodiacs back in a ballet choreographed by fear and practice. The calf dives. The matriarch disappears. There is a long, empty 10 seconds where everybody understands how easy it would be to make this worse. Then the calf surfaces again, breath ragged, and Luca feels the world begin again. The last loop sits high on the dorsal base where hands don't belong. Nikki threads the cutter a third time. Knuckles white, mouth a straight line. She whispers, now. And Luca leans and pulls, and the blade finds the exact right slice. The blue falls open like a bad decision. The calf jolts, dives, and comes up in clean water. The flukes slap, not at them but at the ghost of the thing that nearly closed her life to a narrow end. The matriarch moves in and bumps the calf once, then swims straight at the zodiacs until her white ovals fill their world. She stops with a precision that makes Luca's bones hum. He doesn't project meaning. He accepts message, we are done here. Go be small somewhere else. Back on the pier, a man in a brand new puffy jacket says, this proves whales love us, and Naomi says no, it proves we built a trap and got lucky enough to undo it. The man frowns. The town nods. Fog comes in low and the town walks through it like memory. Luca takes the long way home along the outfall, because quiet water helps his brain file things in drawers. He sees three shapes where driftwood shouldn't be, long and wrong. Blue rope ties. Painter's plastic skin. He stops far enough back to make a choice and then calls Tahlia, because do this first flashes at the top of his recent calls like a good angel that learned to text. Tahlia arrives fast and careful. She doesn't lift the plastic right away. She circles once, looking for footprints where the kelp is scuffed. She stands still long enough to hear the tiny noises wet plastic makes in a sea breeze. Then she slices a corner and the smell of knives and money crawls out. Weights, knives, fresh blue line. Boys with numbers ground off to a muddy anonymity. A dive slate with a scribble. 3 sets. No more kids. An arrow that points to a crude drawing of a dorsal fin like a sickle. Tahlia photographs everything with a patience that looks like mercy and is actually skill. She calls the sheriff. She calls the lab. She calls a number she doesn't label and says, we found the first bookmark. The sheriff arrives with his lined notebook and his habit of looking at water when he is thinking about men. He doesn't make speeches. He touches the rope with the back of his glove. He lifts the buoy and turns it in his hand like he expects it to confess. Somebody's running kits, he says. Somebody's scared enough to throw them away in the daylight. Luca asks if this means arrests. The sheriff gives the kind of shrug people mistake for indifference and is actually self-control. It means we do the work, he says. We lost a lot of practice doing the work when nothing was biting but each other. The storm that finally comes is the kind that puts grocery carts in ditches and sends people to their porches to watch what water does to plans. The barometer drops like a heart rate that needs attention. The breakwater throws spray higher than the cannery windows. The boats sing in their slips, not a pretty song. Luca stands in his living room and feels the building move a fraction the way you feel your own pulse when you stop trying not to. June's text arrives between gusts. Dr. Kline got a ping. Old tag. Old receiver. She needs a winch and 2 stubborn people. Luca replies with a whale emoji because he is a child sometimes. June replies with a middle finger emoji because she isn't. They go out after the front passes and the world is scrubbed too clean for comfort. The water lies to them, pretending to be tired. The coordinates bring them to a rectangle of shelf that might as well be a map legend for dangerous. The receiver, bolted on in the era when the town trusted bolts more than it trusted itself, is half buried in sand, half grown into the sea. They lift it with straps that squeal and a winch that coughs, and the kind of teamwork you can teach to people who don't cook together at least sometimes. Back at the dock, Naomi opens a machine older than Luca in a lab room that smells like rust and electricity. The hard drive spins. The old software wakes up like a man grumbling into coffee. Files appear, neat in their own way. Fin ID, dive length, timestamps. Someone back when also recorded hours of ambient, calls, clicks, silence, and under the whale talk, the humankind, chain clank, metal drag. A voice saying a name. A second voice laughing in a way that turns Luca's stomach into something with corners. A number read aloud like inventory. 3, 5, 9. Naomi doesn't smile or frown. She captures everything, writes time codes, writes dates. She does not say finally. She does not say at last. She says, "We will give this to the people who are allowed to make it count." The sheriff listens to a slice with his jaw set and his eyes softer than they should be for the work. He nods and says, "Some of them will lawyer, some of them will run. Some of them will look at their hands and see rope burns they decided not to explain." He closes the laptop like a lid. We just keep doing the next clean thing. 3 days later, a charter forgets its prep and leaves the dock with a stern line trailing. It snakes itself into the prop like a habit. The boat yaws toward the jetty with 6 people aboard, none of whom came to town to watch themselves be news. Tahlia hears the call and points her bow into chop that slaps back. Luca is on the ramp loading ice when the radio cracks loud enough to make him move without deciding. He and Ray jump into the volunteer RIB because sometimes volunteer means now, not later. They reach the charter as the swell and the rock negotiate a price for small mistakes. Ray reaches with a boat hook and misses. Luca goes low and grabs the line with a hand that remembers the rope from the calf. He wraps once around his palm, hears Naomi's lecture in his head, unwraps, and passes it to a cleat the right way this time. Tahlia throws a knife like an editor cuts a word that does not belong. The line jumps, the prop frees, the boat slides back into water that agrees to let them try again. Nobody claps. The passengers in their rental jackets wobble and sit because standing is not dignity, it's pride. The captain nods at Luca and the nod means thank you and also I should have known better. They will tell nobody that a boy who jumped off a cliff once is the reason they got to wonder about dinner plans instead of the afterlife. The town hall happens in the high school gym because nostalgia is cheaper than renting the community center, and because the bleachers make even loud people quieter. Naomi presents without drama. Tahlia explains without apology. The sheriff takes questions without taking bait. One man asks if whales are more important than jobs. A woman asks if jobs that break laws in the future are really the only jobs we can imagine. June stands and tells a story about a kid in a green hoodie learning the tides. Ray talks fast about views and responsibility and how you can make a thumbnail that doesn't lie. Luca says exactly 9 words. Distance is respect. Distance is love. Learn your lines. If you were there, you felt the room rearrange itself by a few inches. If you weren't, you saw the clip and scrolled on. That's okay. Not every change wants a witness. Tickets become rarer and warnings work better. The vans that pull into Gray Harbor begin to smell less like fog machine and more like thermos coffee. The pier talks keep happening, smaller now, steadier. Someone paints a sign on a piece of driftwood at the head of the trail. You are entering someone else. S house. Take your shoes off. It's not legal language, it is human language. It works anyway. On a morning made of polished steel, the pod returns. The bull's dorsal slices the bright like a cracked blade. The juvenile's fin still leans, a little less. The matriarch tracks the outside like a sentence that never stops being true. They pass without fanfare. They do not wave. They do not stop to say you're welcome. They draw their own maps. The town watches from the line it learned and does not cross it. Luca stands with June and Ray on the pier. The gull on the bollard looks like it belongs there more than any of them ever will. He feels the old urge in his legs, the one that asks what happens if you jump and what if you fly. He answers it the way the grown-up part of the brain answers, with a story and a scar and a rule that is not a threat but a promise he made to a version of himself that still wants to be proud of him. He starts helping at the ramp on weekends. He likes good knots the way some people like clean type. He becomes the guy who seems to be around when a new family backs a trailer wrong and pretends it's fine. He is there to laugh at himself first, to lift when lifting is needed, to point not at whales but at signs and lines, and little kids with bright green hoodies who ask if the ocean ever sleeps. Sometimes, late, when the street is empty and the bait shop's ice machine hums like a polite conversation, he puts his hand on the doorframe and says, "Thank you to no one in particular." It is not superstition, it is an inventory. Alive, working, learning, listening, not making the same mistake, not needing the ocean to forgive what he can fix himself. He doesn't go back to needlepoint. He tells tourists how to get there and never says the part about the rocks looking like stairs if you squint. He is not a hero. He is a neighbor. He is a man who once was pushed and decided the right way to repay the physics was to become more human. Here's what this place will teach you if you let it. The ocean is not a theme park. The whales are not extras in your highlight reel. They are apex predators with languages under their skin and maps in their heads, and patience we have not earned. They can shape water, they can shape us if we're paying attention, but they do not exist to redeem our worst ideas. So do the small good things. Put your drone higher. Keep 300 yards like a sacred number. Idle when it says idle. Learn the seasons and the law. If you find blue rope where blue rope shouldn't be, call the number and use the words that help. Entanglement, description, location, now. Don't narrate. Don't perform. Don't ask to be saved. And if the sea ever has time for you, if a wall of water rises under your ribs and sets you down where the rocks begin, let that be not your legend, but your debt. If this story left a mark, if you felt the cold on your skin, the pull in your chest, the way the eye turned and didn't judge, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Like this video so it reaches the ones who need it more than they need a dare. Drop your take in the comments. Rescue, instinct, or physics wearing a miracle's coat? I read them. I always do. He jumped into the ocean, and an orca pushed him to shore. Extended cut. Consequences here don't look like headlines. They look like boats that quietly sell. They look like a man who always stood at the same spot on the pier and now stands nowhere at all. They look like a shelf in the salvage shed with 3 missing items and a new padlock no one brags about. The sheriff doesn't arrest a villain and hold him up to the camera. He files paperwork. He returns calls. He meets a man in a lot behind the feed store at noon and listens while the man swallows 3 starts and 2 apologies and finally arrives at a sentence about how it got this way. The sheriff thanks him without smiling and says, "We start where we are." Naomi submits audio with timestamps and transcripts. A federal office calls her back 3 weeks later with the kind of gratitude that uses evenings and weekends as if they are chores. She says, "It wasn't me. It was a machine someone bolted on before we remembered better." She doesn't say the rest. That machines don't keep promises either. People do, or they don't. Luca fixes a roof where the shingles have peeled like fish scales. The homeowner tells him she watched the whales from the bluff yesterday and didn't take one photo. "I didn't want to ruin it by keeping it," she says. And Luca thinks that's the most honest sentence he's heard all month. Ray films a series of 1-minute pieces he calls Harbor Rules. The cuts are tight. The titles are boring on purpose. Episode 3 is just Tahlia demonstrating how far 300 yards looks on water, farther than your instincts say, closer than the law deserves. Episode 4 is Naomi drawing a dorsal fin and explaining how saddle patches change with age and injury the way we learn to recognize our neighbors by stride. Episode 5 is June pouring coffee and saying, "Tell me your plan for not being an idiot before you get near the pier." It goes strangely viral because apparently sincerity still works. One evening when the light is a long apology, Araceli pulls a shoebox from the closet and sets it on the table. "He would have liked you like this," she says, meaning Luca's father and meaning not the jump but the quiet afterward. Inside, photos curled at the corners. A man on a deck, hair salted, grin wide, hands rough, eyes soft. A net behind him, green as memory. "He fell," Araceli says. "He was tired. The deck was wrong. He went under and the boat didn't see it. The swell brought him back against the ladder. They call that luck. I call it time the ocean had that day." She looks out the window the way you look for someone who does not come down this street anymore. He got 2 more years after that. He did not waste 1 day of them. Luca holds a picture and sees himself outside of himself. The way you do when you finally realize you are not a new story. You are a chapter in someone else's book. That makes responsibility easier. It makes loneliness heavier and then, strangely, lighter again. He walks down to the pier with 1 photo in his pocket and stands where the planks creak because the tide is making its own decisions below. He doesn't talk to the ocean because he is not the main character. He says his father's name once. Quiet. like a password for a door he already opened and walked through without noticing. A month later, a call comes at the hour when bad news likes to practice. A woman's voice, flat from effort. Kayak. 2 miles south of marker 8. Paddle lost. Fog. The tone is not panic. It is math. Tahlia is on it. Naomi too. A Coast Guard RIB leaves a wake like a line drawn with steady pen. Luca and Ray jog the bluff with flashlights, not because they can help on the water, but because lights help people hold on a little longer. June drives to the ramp with a thermos because someone will be shaking soon. They find her by listening, not looking. The fog eats beams and returns them as damp. But breath carries. A cough. A word half-formed. The RIB slides in quiet as a decision. The woman grips the rope without instruction. You do not teach a hand this old a new trick. She is 60 if a day, tough as pickets, furious with herself in a way that will later turn into humor. I thought I had it, she says. I did not. Behind her, out in the gray, something lifts and sinks. A fin? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe a wish. The team doesn't make it part of the story. They make her warm. They make her safe. They do the paperwork even though it is late and nobody wants to spell their middle names. They go home. That is what rescue mostly looks like. Not miracles, but forms and sleep interrupted and thermoses that come back empty. The campaign isn't glossy. It is a shelf hanger at the bait shop with a QR code that goes to a page Naomi made herself that looks like 2009 and functions just fine. It is a rack card at June Escart with a photo of the harbor at dawn and 3 sentences in a font you can read without squinting. It's Ray's videos, steady and low drama. It's a banner at the ramp that says, your best shot is 300 yards back, trust the zoom. It's also conversation. A father tells a son, we stay put. A son tells a friend, we don't. A group text sends out the schedule for peer talks and 10 people show up who didn't plan to and leave saying a thing Naomi never gets tired of hearing. I didn't even know what I did not know. The sheriff measures success by boredom. Reports go down. Tickets go down. Entanglement calls come in faster and cleaner. A boat that used to hammer the throttle now idles like it understood a secret. A teenager in a bright green hoodie asks if he can volunteer when he's old enough, and Naomi says the thing that makes him stand taller than he is. You already did. The pod passes again at Summer's shoulder when the light starts thinking about fall. Tourists stand with their mouths open in a way that would be funny if it weren't such an honest face. The whales hold their line. The town holds its own. Farther down the coast, a boat that doesn't know better drives directly into a line the matriarch is drawing with her body. She corrects for them with a flick that takes muscle and math and makes it look like grace. Luca watches from video later and feels a clean, precise anger. Not because they risked themselves, because they made her work harder. He closes the laptop and writes a sentence on a sticky note and sticks it to his door. Don't make wild things compensate for you. He reads it every morning. He tries to live like it isn't just a sentence on a square of neon paper. He goes to the headland once more in early fall, when the grass is brittle and the air smells like the first wood stove. He stands at the fence and does not put a hand on it because restraint is a muscle he has been training. The water below is green glass and dark seam. The rocks look like the backs of sleeping animals. He imagines not a rescue but the push. Not a hand. A pressure. Not a miracle. Capacity. He imagines what it asked of the whale to make that shape in water. He imagines what it asks of him to make a shape in his own life that helps someone else toward shore. He leaves without lingering because he has a shift and a mother and a sister and a friend who needs help cutting a run of cedar that won't sit right. He leaves because the cliff will be there tomorrow and he would like to be too. Here is the caution we owe in words that hold. Keep your distance. 300 yards is not a suggestion. It is the line between witness and disturbance. Kill your speed when the fins arrive. Let the ocean speak without adding your engine to its sentence. Report what doesn't belong. Blue rope. Filed numbers. Packages where driftwood should be. Be specific and be fast. You are not the hero for seeing it. You are the neighbor for saying it out loud. Teach your friends the tide tables. Put them in your phone, learn the rip seams, respect the signs. Don't jump to be loved. Be loved because you didn't. And if the sea, busy as it is, ever has time for you and lifts you with a geometry you didn't earn, don't film it first, live. Then tell the story in a way that feeds what saved you. Law, distance, patience, truth. If this expanded cut landed somewhere you'll remember, if your hands felt the rope, if your chest remembered the cold, if your mind recognized the shape of a better choice, subscribe and tap the bell. Like the video so the algorithm does at least one useful thing today. And tell me in the comments what you think really happened out there. Rescue, instinct, or physics doing what physics does while we stand on shore and call it a miracle. I read them, I always do.